You're not going to believe what's unfolding in New York City right now, because it feels less like local politics and more like a political earthquake shaking one of the world's most powerful cities to its core. Nearly 750,000 residents, families, business owners, entire neighborhoods are quietly packing their lives into boxes and preparing to flee, not because of war, not because of natural disaster, but because of the policies unleashed by one man. Democrat Assemblyman Zoran Mamdani, now elected as the city's first Muslim mayor, has stepped into office not as a manager of America's largest city, but as a self-declared ideological warrior, a democratic socialist whose critics say has declared an economic and cultural war on the very people who sustain New York, and the fallout is immediate. Empty apartments, shuttered storefronts, and a once thriving city unraveling faster than anyone imagined. More than 700,000 residents are preparing to leave the 5 boroughs, most heading to Texas, and Florida fleeing rising taxes, collapsing safety, and a government that appears to be turning on its own taxpayers. In his first public address as mayor, Mamdani didn't talk about unity, economic recovery, or restoring trust. Instead, he said, if anyone can show a nation betrayed by Donald Trump how to defeat him, it's the city that gave rise to him. Those weren't campaign lines anymore. That was a declaration of intent. He didn't run to manage New York, he ran to reshape it. And for the first time in modern American politics, a major city is embracing a radical economic experiment while its financial base evaporates overnight. Inside City Hall, the new agenda was pitched as bold. Freeze rents, raise taxes on millionaires, redistribute wealth. But bold has never meant sustainable. 1% of New Yorkers pay nearly half of the city's income tax. When they leave, the city's financial foundation collapses behind them. And that's exactly what's happening as accountants across Manhattan process record-breaking transfer filings. High-rises once impossible to buy into Upper East Side towers. Tribeca penthouses, Hudson Yards condos are lined with moving vans. There are no mass protests, no rallies. Instead, there's something quieter and more alarming. A silent escape. The rent freeze was the political hookover. 1 million rent-stable tenants were promised their rents would never rise, again which played brilliantly on election night but detonated economically the morning after. Developers halted projects. Landlords cut maintenance. Property values began to crack. And for every tenant celebrating a temporary break, 10 more were watching their investments dissolve. Meanwhile, the city's new programs, the city-run grocery stores, community-based safety departments, expanded free legal aid for undocumented immigrants, sound generous on paper, but the money has to come from somewhere, and it is directly out of the NYPD's budget. Veteran officers are being replaced with politically aligned appointees who publicly criticize their own institution. Safety is evaporating. Violent crime is up double digits. Stores in Park Slope, Soho, even Midtown now, close early. Families in luxury buildings hire private security just to walk their kids to school. The city that once symbolized ambition now feels like a failing ideological experiment. Even other states are taking notice. Texas Governor Greg Abbott joked about imposing a 100% relocation tariff on New Yorkers fleeing south. While Florida leaders warn, don't bring your politics here, red states across the country say they're done accepting blue state refugees. But New York's new mayor doesn't see an exodus, he sees a revolution. If the wealthy flee, let them, he said. We'll build a city for those who never had one. It sounds nobilant till you understand what it really means. Replace wealth with welfare. Replace order with ideology. Replace opportunity with dependence. And that transformation is already visible. As the middle class disappears, the city is being repopulated by the very sanctuary-style policies accelerating its decline. Free housing for anyone who claims to need it, open border leniencies, no bail releases, and expansive social programs paid for by a shrinking tax base. The people who built New York's skyline are now watching it turn into a monument of failure. What began as a promise of fairness has morphed into redistribution by force. Inside the government, what's happening doesn't feel like reform, it feels like an internal purge. Entire departments once run on expertise are being reshaped into ideological engines. Veteran police commanders, senior city planners, and longtime financial auditors are leaving in waves, not because of scandal, but because they've been replaced by loyalists who repeat the same line: we're building a city for the people. That phrase is now plastered across city agencies, but behind closed doors. Employees describe something far more troubling: orders to redistribute authority, silence dissent, and bypass oversight. Inspectors who once flagged financial discrepancies now report to committees stacked with political allies. One longtime finance analyst described the new system as a revolution wearing a budget spreadsheet. Budgets are rewritten overnight. Emergency housing programs siphon millions from infrastructure funds. Subway maintenance, already decades behind, is being delayed again to pay for universal rent credits, leading to more outages, more delays, a transit system that feels like it's crumbling in real time. And then there's the NYPD. Once a global gold standard for policing, it has been gutted. Dozens of senior commanders pushed out. Patrol staffing down nearly 20%, morale lower than at any point in recent memory. Body cam leaks show chaotic scenes of understaffed patrols, overwhelmed by incidents that would have been routine only a few years ago. New York, the greatest city in the wealthiest nation in history, now feels like an experiment slipping out of control. A place where ideology is outrunning reality, and millions are deciding the only solution left is to leave. Already circulating online is footage showing NYPD officers outnumbered during street protests, forced to stand down while agitators smash windows, flip trash cans, and deface storefronts. The mayor calls it de-escalation, but to residents watching from apartment windows, it looks less like peacekeeping and more like a slow, public surrender. Meanwhile, the newly created Department of Community Safety, a massive city bureau with zero real law enforcement authority, has exploded in size. These aren't police officers, they're community liaisons, social advocates trained to mediate conflict but not to enforce laws. Their uniforms look official, their badges aren't, and when real emergencies unfold, they end up calling the same NYPD whose ranks have been stripped bare. And it's not just safety that's unraveling, it's the economy too. The problem isn't that skeptical residents leave, it's that many skeptical residents are staying, watching everything collapse around them. Since the mayor took office, more than 12,000 small businesses, bodegas, laundromats, family-owned stores have shut down, forced out by new tax brackets, inspections, compliance rules. In a hostile business environment, the wealthy may be fleeing, but it's the working class left behind who are now forced to carry the cost. And here is where it gets darker. Leaked internal memos show city economists warned months before the election of a looming revenue collapse contagion, a domino effect where every 1% loss of the tax base triggers cuts in transit, sanitation, emergency services, and municipal staffing. Their solution was simple: don't antagonize top earners. But the warning never left the building, buried by political aides who feared backlash. And now the dominoes are falling exactly as predicted. Trash backlogs have doubled. Emergency response times are up across all boroughs. Crime is spreading north into neighborhoods untouched for decades. Even some progressives are privately admitting the situation has spiraled out of control. One city council member, speaking anonymously, said, "We didn't expect him to actually try to build socialism overnight. Now we're watching the infrastructure collapse around us." Yet national media continues spinning it into a talking point warsome, calling it a bold equality experiment. Others calling it the death of America's last financial capital. But the truth sits in the numbers, and the numbers are terrifying. Property values have dropped 17%. Corporate leases, hundreds of them, are being canceled. More than 500 major employers have already confirmed relocations to Texas, Florida, and North Carolina. The ripple effect is enormous. When New York bleeds, the country bleeds. Wall Street may still operate, but the people who power it, bankers, traders, analysts, coders, are vanishing from the skyline. Manhattan's nights are dimmer. Restaurants are quiet. Broadway's ticket sales are down double digits. Yet the mayor remains unfazed. In his latest address, he doubled down. If progress makes the powerful uncomfortable, that means it's working. Much of the applause came from individuals who no longer contribute to the tax base. Too many New Yorkers, it feels like the city has been hijacked not by criminals in the streets, but by ideologues in the offices. Those who once fought to improve the city now watch it being swallowed by its own politics. And the shockwaves haven't stopped at the Hudson River. They are reshaping the entire nation. Within weeks, governors across America turned New York's crisis into their top headline. The socialist experiment has begun, one governor declared. States that once looked to New York for financial leadership are bracing for a fiscal aftershock. Florida's governor called it a slow-motion implosion. Texas lawmakers went further, proposing a blue state relocation fee for new arrivals, and this time, they're not joking. The migration is real. U-Haul and Atlas Van Lines report record one-way moves, with the average load coming from families and business owners, not temporary renters. Economists warn that this exodus could destabilize property markets across the country. When hundreds of thousands of high-income taxpayers abandon one state, municipal bonds, pension funds, and national real estate markets all begin shifting. Meanwhile, the White House tries to stay neutral, calling New York's collapse a local governance matter, but behind closed doors, federal analysts are panicking. Homeland Security and the Treasury Department are quietly monitoring economic flows, because a tax base collapse like New York's can spread faster than inflation itself. And while the financial hit is enormous, the cultural divide may be even more alarming. Blue states are doubling down on progressive experiments, while red states tighten defenses. America isn't just ideologically split, it's being physically rearranged by migration. Families are uprooting, companies are relocating, and entire communities are redrawing the American map. In Texas, one official put it bluntly: "We're not taking in refugees from socialism." Florida is already running targeted ads aimed at displaced professionals. Work free, live free. Tennessee and North Carolina report a surge in relocation filings from New York and New Jersey zip codes. The numbers don't lie. Since the mayor's first month in office, moving companies estimate more than $90 billion in combined income has left New York State. That's not just lost revenues, lost influence, lost power, lost national standing. Every dollar that migrates south weakens New York's grip on the American economy. And what was once the financial capital of the world is rapidly transforming into something unrecognizable, a warning, a lesson, and a symbol of what happens when ideology outruns reality. In this cautionary tale of a city pushed to its breaking point, the emotional fallout inside New York is impossible to ignore. Retirees who spent decades in the same rent-controlled buildings are watching their neighborhoods transform overnight. One tenant crying as her landlord explains the building now needs $50,000 in mandated renovations just to meet updated city codes. Homeless encampments are expanding under bridges and outside subway stations once filled with morning commuters. Even union workers, longtime political allies of City Hall, are breaking ranks as their pension funds fall under emergency review while the city diverts resources to cover budget shortfalls. The media is split right down the middle, with some networks praising the fictional mayor of this scenario as a visionary unafraid to confront inequality, while others declare him the leader who broke New York. Yet for ordinary residents stuck in gridlocked traffic staring up at darkened office towers, none of it feels visionary, it feels like abandonment. Now Washington is watching closely as federal analysts from the Office of Urban Affairs confirm that contingency plans are being drafted for what they describe, in bureaucratic language, as economic evacuation zones, essentially protocols for what happens when a major city faces potential financial collapse. A federal rescue would be politically radioactive, yet the discussions continue behind closed doors. And then comes the twist. While residents flee, foreign investors quietly move in, with Chinese and Middle Eastern holding companies buying up foreclosed buildings, entire blocks at a time, at a fraction of their former value, converting empty apartments into offshore assets. The city that once symbolized the American dream is, in this fictional narrative, being sold off piece by piece to outside capital. By the time Washington realizes what's happening in this imagined scenario, the damage is widespread, no longer confined to City Hall, but radiating through every level of government. Treasury auditors uncover missing infrastructure funds. Inspectors general flag irregular transfers into nonprofits linked to the administration. And the story breaks not through local media but through a federal press briefing. The FBI had been watching for months. What began as a routine financial review spiraled into a full corruption probe, with internal reports alleging that campaign affiliates routed donations through city contracts and community initiatives, laundering public money under the banner of social equality. The fictional mayor dismisses it all as political theater, but subpoenas continue arriving. Agents seize documents from procurement offices, subpoena developers, pull records from 5 departments, and during one search recover more than 100 sensitive documents. A whistleblower from the housing office steps forward, revealing that rent-freeze initiatives were being used to funnel taxpayer funds into shell organizations that never built a single unit. Within days, FBI and DA agents launch coordinated raids not on the streets, but inside government buildings, seizing computers, cloning phones, and pulling data from internal servers. Footage spreads across social media. Black SUVs lined up outside civic buildings. Agents and windbreakers hauling boxes of evidence from offices that once symbolized transparency. Crowds gather outside courthouses as officials announce arrests to deputy commissioners, a budget director, and several campaign donors detained. Overnight, headlines shift from a city for the people to a city in crisis. And here comes the cruelest twist of the fictional scenario. The mayor, who once promised to end inequality, has inadvertently created the largest wealth divide in modern city history. The wealthy have left, the middle class has vanished, and those who believed in him now find themselves trapped inside a collapsing system. One lifelong resident sums it up perfectly. We traded safety for slogans, and now we have neither. Across the nation, other cities take notice. California quietly retracts its own rent freeze proposals. Chicago holds emergency tax meetings to prevent investor flight. New York's fictional downfall becomes a nationwide reality check on how much progress people are willing to pay for. Yet the mayor at the center of this imagined scenario refuses to back down. In a televised speech, he declares, "You can't destroy a movement by arresting its believers," a line that sounds more like a manifesto than a policy statement. And the cameras catch something else, too. The unmistakable look of a leader who has lost the very city he once vowed to save. The aftermath is brutal. Frozen property markets, accelerating job losses, federal oversight committees preparing to intervene, and a fractured city council torn between demands for resignation and calls to double down on ideology. For everyday residents, the choice becomes stark: stay aligned with the system in freefall or leave while escape is still possible. Moving trucks now line the avenues where parades once marched. And the sound of a city that never slept has been replaced by the steady hum of engines heading south. America's biggest experiment in radical governance within this fictional narrative has transformed into a national warning sign, raising a question now, echoing across the country: what happens when leadership stops protecting prosperity and starts punishing it? It's no longer about left or right, it's about survival. And as this cautionary story closes, viewers are reminded that what happens in one city can reshape an entire nation.